Hey folks, it's Steve Wilmes and Matt Kita, and we're here with another episode. Today we're talking about opioid use, specifically fentanyl use. We're seeing some students starting to use this in the schools, maybe inadvertently, unknowingly, but we have had a death. Someone has overdosed in one of the bathrooms at one of our schools. And this is a very serious thing, and it's a very sad thing, and I think with the amount of drugs that are coming into our country, especially how they're coming into the country and in what forms, it's a very important topic. And so today we're going to discuss a little bit of what you can do to make sure that you're ready to respond to these types of things. So what do you think, Matt?
Yeah, look, when you're attacking an issue as this broad and this invasive, you really need a community approach. You need to get your teachers and your staff on board. You need to speak with law enforcement. You need to get the parents involved. And then you need to do student outreach itself. All these parts working together are critical to formulate just an overall plan of attack to make people aware of the danger that this presents.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that community approach is important. I think that, it's a holistic approach. It's not an easy fix. It's not something that you're going to curb overnight. You'll start to see some progress here, but you're really going to have a multi-pronged approach where you get out there and you're hitting, as Matt said, teachers, staff, administrators. You're hitting the students, the parents. You're making sure law enforcement is involved. Mm-hmm. So I think just to kind of start is really looking at where do you start your outreach? And I think parent nights, educational notices, those things are a great place to start. Contact your law enforcement. Make sure that they send out a drug recognition expert. Not someone that's going to like, hey, we're going to arrest you. We're going to do these things, but really educating the parents about what to look for, those signs and symptoms, and making sure that you really can walk away from the training with an idea of what it is that you're looking for,
right,
and what to do if those signs and symptoms appear.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing, right? Is look, most of us aren't going to be aware of what these drugs look like. Like fentanyl now, you see it a lot in chalk and powder form. It's been chopped down.
That's a big thing that's coming out now.
Right. And you see it and you won't even know what it is. And that's why it's so key to have training like this so that parents are able to actually spot this. Look, the parents are going to be able to go places that no one else is. Teachers and staff and law enforcement. Your parents are going to be able to be closer in with the students' lives, and they'll possibly be able to see the signs for these kinds of drugs or the symptoms that could come in. So that's why it's so key to not only receive this training, but also that you know not only to recognize the drugs, but also the symptoms and signs in the students.
Absolutely. Yeah, and again, back to the parent night training, I think bringing in a drug counselor, again, teaching parents how to talk with the students themselves, right? How do you talk to your child about such a topic that, hey, oh, you used to drink, mom and dad. You used to do these things, mom and dad. Yeah. It's mom and dad, or it's mom, or it's dad, or it's whoever, just kind of lecturing them. And a lot of times when they get into something that is this heavy, it's really too much to talk to.
Yeah.
And if you haven't started this at a very young age, like my daughter, I've been talking to my daughter since she's been 4 or 5 years old, not do drugs and things like this. So
right.
I think the big problem here, though, like you said, chalky substance. If we're talking about fentanyl, you touch this, right? You breathe it in your nose, you get it on your tongue, you can die from this. It's extremely lethal. It's extremely concentrated in that respect, potent. So when you're looking at this lethal dose, it's tiny, like smaller than a grain of salt is what you need. in order to die, especially if you're talking about younger children that maybe only weigh 100 pounds.
Right.
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 So when we look at that, starting off with the parents, I think informational flyers, making sure that, like I said, drug recognition experts, the drug counselors, administrators, those folks that understand what it is that we're talking about, how to translate that information into parents being able to understand it. And then from that point, you need to move into the students themselves. And I think assemblies are a good way to do that, right?
Yep.
Same people involved, drug recognition experts, drug counselors. Make sure that you do inform the students what the penalties are if they bring this on campus and things like this. But I think then on top of that, you have to really have more outreach. So an anonymous crime reporting hotline, like We Tip. Yeah, and for full disclosure, I used to sit on their advisory board many years ago, but great program. There's others out there as well, and you can utilize this. I think it's important to refresh. Like I did a training a long time ago, Matt, on on using these, using these type of messages, right? And we see this in safety all the time too, where, hey, we put up a sign, use your gloves and hard hat. And that sign sits there for 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, 12, 20 years.
Yep.
It's the same sign. Think about when you drive down the highway, if you saw the same billboard every day, you would start to ignore it.
Yep.
So it's like shampoo, folks. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. You have to refresh these messages.
Yes.
And I think especially the location of where you place these. So they should be done tastefully. You can put them in the bathrooms where a lot of this drug use is going to be done.
Yes.
So that people have a way to, not read the sign in public. I think a lot of pressure is on students. If they get caught looking at the sign, then they're made fun of and stuff like this.
Right.
So
Right.
Putting those in places that they're going to see them and they can, write down the phone numbers or discreetly, right? And make those calls, make that kind of stuff happen if they want to report something, or if they just need some help. So that's part of it. Making sure that your counselors know how to talk to the students about this. So when they have those private conversations that they can address that readily.
Yep, absolutely. And that's the thing. I think that the important part, because there's a social element to this, especially for the students, the important part is to give them a safe way to either pull themselves or get others, their friends, out of a situation without really exposing them to the social side of it. So Steve just mentioned drug counselors being able to speak to students, showing in a holistic manner, not just the drug counselors, but the staff, the teachers, your security officers, whoever, that they are open to hearing when a student wants to tell them something. And they're not going to come to somebody that they're afraid of, or that they're, or think they're going to get punished by, so you give them that safe, holistic environment. And then We Tip, again, is such a key one. If there's just some situations where it just needs to be anonymous, that is a fantastic tool to use to allow an anonymous tipping and avoiding the social side of that.
Absolutely. And I was just thinking when you said security officer, it's important to understand that going back again to this training piece, right? It's so important that you give the right training. So how do we pick up these pills? How do we pick up this powder, right? What tools do we use? Do we have the personal protective equipment in order to do that? So this all has to be part of the training. And I think a lot of times, even when we see people that are in these roles,
right,
that want the training, but they have people above them that, well, we don't want to get that deep involved in respirator protection programs or personal protective programs. Well, guess what? It's here. You need to do it, right? Yes. You have to do it. And it seems scary. It's not that scary. You hire an expert like us. We come in, we do the program, we put people in it, and away you go. And now you can handle things safely. Yep. And, anytime you're doing search and seizures, if your security officer doing that, they need the proper level of protection to do that.
Yep.
They can't be reaching in bags. There was a vehicle accident out here, and there were some pills in the car. The officer reached in, grabbed them with his bare hands, and I said to him, "Hey, look, we need to be mindful of this. You should really glove up." Well, sometimes there's just not time. Well, I can do a whole video on things that you should never say to a risk manager.
Yeah.
That's a good one. We should do that. But, is there time for me to worry about getting you to the hospital now and trying to save your ass? Oops, Did I say that out loud? Trying to save you, so don't be stupid in those regards.
Right.
And so I think these programs, so you got to put those programs in. Now we get into kind of the physical things that we can do. Mm-hmm. And that comes down to making sure that we are monitoring restrooms. Mm-hmm. We can, again, here in California, you have to keep certain restrooms open. You have to have a sufficient number.
Right.
They need to be open during the school days. That doesn't mean that you can't unlock them and monitor them. You can monitor them, and maybe you should monitor them. And so, again, having enough monitors, they're going to be in a security role. If they average more than 20 hours a week, then they have to go through the mm-hmm. training on that. So there's a lot of things in that regard that need to be done. But these are really serious issues. If you have children overdosing in your bathrooms and dying, then these are the tactics that you have to take in order to properly address those concerns. And so it may seem like a lot, but on the other hand, it may not be enough.
Right.
And so monitoring those restrooms, making sure that you understand the signs and symptoms again. And Matt, you want to just go over those signs and symptoms real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. So when someone is suffering from opioid abuse, and especially fentanyl, you are going to see them get dizzy, have consciousness issues, be a little bit sedated. Look at their eyes. They'll have pinpoint pupils. Their respiration might be shallow, might be a little shorter. They will have cold and clammy hands. Or cold or clammy, not just hands. Their skin overall will be cold or will be clammy. I think I hit all the main ones.
Pinpoint pupils.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of this is just the same type of thing that you would see with heroin use. Heroin is an opioid. So this is just a really kind of synthetic manufactured type of opioid that is extremely strong. So, if they start to go into overdosing, there'll be convulsions, foaming at the mouth, drooling, unable to awake them, things like this. So again, being able to see those signs and symptoms, but I think also in like mood swings.
Yeah, the behavioral side is a big part of that.
The behavioral side is something that you'll see. I think, again, just understanding what those are and understanding that fentanyl is an extremely powerful drug, and it's being mixed in with a lot of fake pills and things like this because it's cheap. It's super cheap to make, super cheap to transport. There's big profit margins on it. People want stronger and stronger drugs. And unfortunately, the kids are getting wrapped up in this. So I think another part of that student education is, hey, look, if you're trying to buy an Adderall, well, then do it with your doctor, right? Do it with your doctor. Now, we know the kids that are trying to get this without going to their doctor are doing it because the doctor's not going to give them one.
Right.
So where do you buy these things? Who do you get them from? Are not condoning drug use or illegal use of prescription pills at all. I think it's a horrible thing, all in all. That being said, we know that kids get into this, and sometimes you have to address it. So you have to talk about not buying pills off the internet from some unknown sources, because again, they're being cut with this because it's just a larger profit margin. So be extremely careful. Don't take pills from other students. Don't pick up pills. Don't go to a party and do a farm party where people throw drugs on the bed, and then you take a handful and see what happens to you. It's unreal to me. I think there's a lot better ways to have fun. But that being said, so that's part of the approach. Again, I think re-updating your policies and procedures as to what you're going to do if you do find fentanyl on a student, and those types of things. And the investigation piece of this, you know, how serious do you want to get with it? Right. I know a lot of times in our society now, we're trying not to put labels on students. We're trying to keep people out of the criminal justice system. Unfortunately, there has to be a good net around that and services around that. Otherwise, you end up with a similar type of problem. So, you know, this is a big one. It's flooding our country right now. It's coming into our country in large amounts. Yes. It's a very serious thing. It's being found places. So you have to have the right PPE. You have to have the right knowledge and skill set to deal with these things. So take that time, do your educational programs. If you don't have an anonymous crime reporting hotline, go ahead and get one of those. Educate your parents, educate your staff. And really, unfortunately, outside of the physical, which is minimal, monitoring bathrooms is tough, right? It is. You as an adult, it's hard to stand in there and monitor what's going on. You can't see someone in the stall. There's privacy concerns and issues. But you can do a lot of things to dissuade someone from bringing these on. The other was the drug dogs. I think drug dogs serve a very narrow purpose. Yeah. It's extremely important to understand that if you're going to use a drug dog, you need to find a drug dog handler that knows very well and follows the law to the letter of the law, because you cannot violate a student's privacy. You cannot violate their right to their property. And so illegal search and seizures happen all the time, very quickly, when a person is separated from their property and they do not give you permission to search. And so law enforcement's the best to do that. And again, if you have overdoses in your school site, then it just may be that is the acceptable level of deterrence that you need. And that's a tough one, because it's a very controversial thing among parents.
Yeah. A lot of parents probably would be upset about even the concept of it, but sometimes, you know, in a very serious situation, you may face having to do that.
Yeah. And you know, what I do, I don't like the use of the drug dogs myself when it comes to my student, my daughter. Right. And I know we're not doing anything, and I'm the risk manager. There is a place for it. I think what I don't like about it is that so many times it goes wrong. And there's so many things that are violated. So I think you really have to balance that. But again, it may be an extremely necessary thing to send the message and to weed out some of these issues up front.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. 100%. 100%.
So we'll just take a look at these signs and symptoms one more time. And again, make sure that you're training up your staff. Make sure that you are getting the right PPE out there. And then call us if you want us to help you design a program around that. Because again, it takes a lot of information to go out there.
Yep. We're here to help.
Absolutely. So you're watching this on our blog. We do have this wonderful YouTube channel, which has a bunch of our videos on there, and you can check them out there. And if you're already on YouTube, thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe. Is that what they say, Matt? They say
subscribe now. Yes. Yeah, so click the bell.
Click the bell?
Yeah, okay. Click the bell.
Is that what you do?
Yep.
All right. And remember, don't touch the pills or the powder if you don't know what it is. Okay? With that, we'll see you on the next one.
See you later, guys.